Hey guys, TekGeekHD here again with another video, and today I've got my review of the iPhone 7. This is Apple's latest iPhone, and for most of us, it was kind of a disappointment. Apple's always released phones on a tick-tock release cycle, and the new design came around every other year. That isn't the case this year, however, because 2017 is Apple's 10-year anniversary of the iPhone, and they're saving the really big upgrade for them. But for those of us who wanted a new offering from Apple this year, this is what we've got. The question is it any good, and should you upgrade? Let's find out. The iPhone comes in two variants, the 7 and the 7 Plus, with the same 4.8-inch and 5.5-inch screen size offerings as before. But one notable change this time around is the extended color gamut the screens are capable of producing. Put the phone side by side with an iPhone 6s or below, and the differences really become apparent. The colors are absolutely beautiful. They're not blown out of proportion with a ridiculous oversaturation, but in typical Apple fashion, they're accurate and rich. The depth and dynamic range really comes alive on these displays, and it looks even better on the larger 1080p iPhone 7 Plus. This isn't an OLED panel, that's rumored to be coming next year, but Apple's really worked their magic calibrating this display. It has some of the deepest blacks I've ever seen come out of an LCD. So much so that I often end up using black or black and white backgrounds on my phone, just to see the level of contrast between the blacks and the colors on screen. Another major difference this time around are the new colors. You might have noticed this already, but the iPhone comes in this brand new black color, which I personally call matte black and love. My favorite iPhone until this one came out was the black iPhone 5. It was a rich dark color with a hint of midnight blue thrown in, and looked beautiful besides for the anodization issues, which led to the infamous Scuffgate scandal. The iPhone also comes in a hypergloss finish that Apple calls jet black. This looks amazing for the first few seconds of owning it, but then the greasy fingerprints, and worse, scratches start to appear. This has already been super apparent from people's daily use. So much so that Apple's issued a warning on their site claiming jet black is prone to microabrasions, and they recommend putting a case on it. The next major feature of the new iPhone 7 is the new camera. This is an all-new 12-megapixel sensor which captures amazing photographs. The dynamic range is great and doesn't blow out highlights while still retaining shadow information. The colors tend to be on the warmer side as compared to other cameras, such as on the Galaxy S7 and Note 7, but also look a lot more natural and true tone. Speaking of true tone, Apple's signature True Tone Flash, first introduced on the iPhone 5s, has 2 more LEDs added to it for a grand total of 4 this year, for a brighter and also richer flash. The flash is still a flash, and it doesn't look amazing, but it's definitely much better than phones of the past, and it makes for usable photographs in situations where other phones would struggle. Also, the iPhone 7, yes, even the smaller one, now has optical image stabilization to record silky smooth 4K video, just like its older brother. Now the big story is with the iPhone 7 Plus and its dual camera setup. It features a second camera module, with the same 12-megapixel sensor, but a slightly different aperture to accommodate a telephoto lens. What this means is that the iPhone 7 Plus can optically zoom and capture photographs closer up without sacrificing the detail a software crop would. Actually, let me hand the video off to my friend Matt, who's been using the iPhone 7 Plus, so you can hear what he has to say about it.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Matt. So, I've been using the iPhone 7 Plus, and that's actually an upgrade for me from the iPhone 6s. I decided to go bigger this year, and that's because of some of the features that come with the iPhone 7 Plus. The main one, of course, is the camera. There's now a dual lens camera. One is a 28mm lens, which is the same as what you get on the iPhone 7, and the second is a 56mm lens, which is a much more zoomed in focal length. Now what's great about this is that you get optical zoom on a smartphone, so you can zoom in but not lose any quality. Now this camera isn't exactly the same as the first one. It's a 2.8 aperture, which means in low light it's not going to be quite as good. But in normal lighting conditions, the quality of the camera is still really good and gives you some really nice effects. Now also with this camera you get the portrait feature, which isn't available to everyone just yet, still in beta, but this uses the two cameras to create a depth map. And this gives you a simulated depth of field effect, similar to what you would get with a higher-end camera. This effect is still in beta, so it's still being worked on, but what we're getting so far is looking really good. You can still tell that it's simulated and not the real deal, but for a smartphone, it's pretty impressive. Now another reason to get the iPhone 7 Plus is of course that screen. It's 5.5-inch 1080p panel, and it looks just as good as the smaller version on the iPhone 7, it's just bigger. So if you like a bigger screen, the iPhone 7 Plus is definitely the way to go. Now, arguably one of the best reasons to go with the iPhone 7 Plus is the battery life. It is significantly better than what you'll get on the iPhone 7. For me, I can easily go all day and still have battery life at the end, which is something I couldn't do on my 6S and probably you're not going to be able to do on the iPhone 7. Think about it this way. You can get the iPhone 7 and a battery case, or you can just get an iPhone 7 Plus, and you'll probably even out in battery life. So when looking at the iPhone 7 Plus, there's a few features here that you really should consider.
The iPhone 7 now has a solid-state home button. This means it's no longer a physical button like in older iPhone models, but uses a similar technology as Apple's new trackpads. It takes a little while to get used to, and Apple gives you 3 possible feedback intensities for you to find one that suits you. It's not for everyone. I for one have really grown to love it and really can't find myself going back to the older button. The iPhone 7 runs Apple's latest version of iOS, iOS 10. It's actually more than just a fresh coat of paint, contrary to what most would believe. Apple claims this is one of the biggest revamps of iOS yet. The complaints that people have had about iOS and its inability to truly multitask, include interactive widgets and more, have been addressed to some degree, but for more information I actually made a dedicated video about iOS 10 linked in the description below. All you really need to know is that it's blazing fast, which can also be accredited to the iPhone 7's new processor. It's actually an interesting dynamic quad-core setup with 2 high-power cores and 2 high-efficiency cores. What this means, simply, is that the iPhone can manage higher performance in tasks like intensive games while regulating battery life in a more efficient way. The iPhone 7 still isn't a 2-day phone, but the iPhone 7 Plus absolutely is, and both phones have seen jumping battery life, albeit marginal. Finally, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, the iPhone 7 does not have a headphone jack, and in my honest opinion, people have been blowing this so-called issue way out of proportion. The 3.5mm headphone jack is a standard over 100 years old, and while it wasn't absolutely necessary for Apple to get rid of it just yet, the time was coming, and Apple's known to be the kind of company that sets trends like this in motion in the tech industry. What is frustrating is the fact that the replacement is an Apple proprietary Lightning connector, which means audio, at least wired audio, isn't going to be cross-platform anymore. And for those of us with investments in high-fidelity headphones like myself, Apple does include a Lightning to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter in the box. I just keep mine plugged in into the end of my headphone cable at all times. The truth is, the future is wireless, and this just helps us get there one step quicker. And a plus is that without the headphone jack, Apple was able to implement a much more intimate haptic experience all throughout iOS with the new Taptic engine, as well as receive IP67 water and dust resistance, a trade-off I think is well worth it. Here's the thing. If you're using an iPhone 6S, there's absolutely no need to upgrade. Wait till next year. If you're on an iPhone 6 and want next year's iPhone, but the 6's camera is getting way too old for you, buy a 6S as a placeholder, or try and make do with it for another year. And for everyone else, the iPhone 7 is absolutely worth it. So long as you can make do with the headphone jack removal. To most of my friends I've actually been telling them to stay away from this thing for now, but it really depends on the phone you have now. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.